This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of the Celebrity Solstice this week, and as always, staff writer Richard Sims is standing by with cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug. So I, as usual, am in Woodstock. Where are you today?
Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Wow.
A hot one today, but I was prepared for that. And we're starting off, well, speaking of hot, really, we're starting off with a nightmarish situation that happened over in France.
Every cruise I've ever been on, during the safety briefing, they always talk about fire being pretty much the worst thing that can happen on a ship. It's one of the reasons they ask you not to smoke on balconies and not to throw things overboard and all that stuff. Fire is obviously a dangerous thing at sea. And that's exactly what happened on the river ship MS Botticelli. A fire broke out around 4 a.m, and they had to very quickly evacuate the passengers and crew, a total of about 150 people. Fortunately, everyone was able to be brought to shore safely. Now, I have to think that when this happens on a river cruise, it's not quite as dangerous as when you're at sea. In this case, the ship was docked, but even if it wasn't, it's the difference between getting from a ship to a riverbank, which is probably relatively close, as opposed to potentially being in the middle of the ocean when a fire breaks out and disaster strikes. In any case, this was, a positive situation. Everyone was fine. Passengers were put up in hotels while they awaited details and transportation back home. No word yet on how much damage was done or, what future sailings might be impacted.
And speaking of fires, passengers aboard a Princess cruise ship had one heck of a time the other night when smoke detectors triggered the ship's fire response system.
So the river cruise situation we were talking about a second ago happened at 4 a.m. The situation on Sun Princess took place at 2 a.m. In either of those scenarios, it has to be absolutely terrifying to wake up on a ship that you think, rightly or wrongly, you are being basically told is on fire. Because in this case, apparently they were cleaning the galley and it set off a couple of smoke alarms, which then did exactly what they're supposed to do and triggered the ship-wide system. Next thing you know, crew was being dispatched to their emergency stations. Passengers were receiving messages telling them to report to their muster stations. Now, Princess says the whole thing was wrapped up in a few moments, once they figured out what was going on and were able to just shut the systems down, basically. And passengers were sent back to their rooms. But boy, I bet they didn't fall right back to sleep after something like that, being woke up at 4 a.m. thinking your ship is on fire. I mean, if it was me, I would totally be like, well, I'm wide awake and on a cruise. There must be food here somewhere, right?
Yeah, and the International Cafe is normally open that time of night, too. So, you would be in luck there on Princess. Meanwhile, though, Carnival Cruise Line just, we'll say, doubled the fun, or at least the potential crowd sizes at Celebration Key.
Yeah, if you've got a trip to Celebration Key planned in the coming months, you might find yourself sharing the island with, around 13,000 other people. That's because the cruise line just completed a 3rd and 4th pier, which will make it possible for up to 4 ships to dock on any given day. So if you remember, the island debuted last July, and by the time it reaches its 1-year anniversary, which is just a few weeks away from right now, it's estimated it'll have welcomed 2.5 million guests. Now, thanks to the additional piers, the destination will be able to welcome around 200 more ships each year. So according to Carnival, 3 and 4 ship days will be basically routine by the time September or October rolls around. Doug, you've been there. You've experienced what it has to offer. What's your take on 4 ships visiting in one day? Like, can it handle the crowds? And am I right that, like, even if it's not quite ready yet, there's other things coming that might help spread those crowds out?
I think so because, well, first off, the piece of property is huge and that 1,000,000-gallon lagoon is massive as well. But they're doing a phase 2 that's not even open yet. I mean, I could see even more people being corralled in there just because of the fact that phase 2 is going to be almost the size of phase 1. and
Wow.
it's massive. So I believe that there is plenty of room there. The only thing I would be concerned about is if I was going there on a 4-ship day, getting off the ship early and grabbing a lawn chair or a lounger with an umbrella.
Yeah, that's true. And that's where you rent them so that you've got something in advance.
And while we're on the topic of Carnival here, one of their crew members rose to the challenge when a young passenger was in need of saving.
This is a pretty amazing story, and it's the kind of thing we're always happy to report. So often we have to report things that are not necessarily, happy making news, but this is amazing. So a crew member named Milic Sharovich was off duty and enjoying dinner in the main dining room when an 11-year-old girl at a table across the room began choking. He, he was trained in this. He immediately leapt up, ran across the room, tried to help the child, who by this point was unconscious. It turns out the little girl was choking on a grape, which he was able to dislodge. Carnival, then took her to the med bay, checked her out. She was perfectly fine. Meanwhile, they later presented him with the Cruise Line's Hero Award, which they give to recognize crew members who go above and beyond in extraordinary situations. And that, my friend, is definitely what he did.
And it looks like as if a ship's current sailing is dealing with that dreaded norovirus.
Yeah. According to the CDC, the Ruby Princess has got some sick people on board. As always, we know this because when 3% or more of people on board fall ill, it has to be reported to the CDC. In this case, the current sailing of the Ruby Princess, which began on June 12th and is scheduled to end this coming Sunday on July 2nd, they have at least 102 passengers and 23 members of the crew reporting norovirus or norovirus-like symptoms. I'm always more interested in the crew numbers than passengers because the crew lives in tight quarters, and it's always felt to me as if, if it's not handled properly, it could just rip right through them. Next thing you know, you got numbers through the roof. Percentage-wise, what we're dealing with here is 3.4% of passengers and 2% of crew who have symptoms. Again, not a huge number. I mean, it actually sounds scary when you say 100 people, but when you think about how many people are on the ship and then you do the math and it comes down to like 3%, that's not as scary in that. Even though it's numbers and math, it's still not as scary. 3% is, by the way, the magic number. That's the number at which the outbreak has to be reported to the CDC. So far this year, Princess said that they put advanced cleaning protocols and that ailing folks have been isolated. This is something that they're very good at. They know how to deal with. For those keeping track, this is the 7th outbreak of the year, 3 of which have been on Princess ships, but none of the other Princess outbreaks were on this ship.
And for what it's worth, 685 million cases are reported annually on land.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this every time because I think it's really important. There's always somebody who needs to hear it, that norovirus gets the reputation of being a cruise ship disease, but it's way more common on land. I mean, like thousands of percent. I don't know the math because I'm not a math person, as we all know, but it's much, much, much more prevalent on land. But there are no rules on land as to, having to report it to the CDC. And there is no nice little website like the CDC has where you can go every day and see if any new cases have broken out on a cruise ship.
Yeah, and just for reference, that was the CDC's number, 685 million worldwide, it said. So wrapping things up here with a lawsuit involving a name, well, pretty familiar to most cruisers.
So as these things so often do, the lawsuit involves a company with a lot of money trying to avoid paying a lot of money to a person who also has a lot of money. So the name we're talking about here is Frank Del Rio. And you may remember he was formerly the head of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings. And when he stepped down, he received, as executives often do, an incentive package. He claims that part of this package was the company agreeing to pay him a consulting fee of $1 million per quarter. Cue up your Dr. Evil, $1 million, $1 million a quarter for 4.5 years. So the math on that one, and there's a lot of math in today's episode, that comes out to $18 million that they were saying they were going to pay him as a consultant. He says this was part of a verbal agreement, but the actual written agreement only covers 2.5 years and 10 million. Norwegian is trying to dismiss Del Rio's lawsuit, saying that even if there was an oral agreement, it wouldn't override the written one, and that further, the type of deal he's saying they made wouldn't be legal anyway. In fact, Norwegian says this deal that he says they made would be incriminating himself because he's alleging he took part in a scheme to conceal executive compensation from shareholders, which would be a violation of federal securities law. And the reason that becomes an issue is because he's saying that the reason that there was a written agreement and an oral agreement was that at the time there had been, payouts made to other executives, and the line really didn't want to go to the shareholders and be like, oh yeah, we're going to throw this guy, $1 million a quarter for 4.5 years. And so they made this deal for the $10 million, with the rest sort of being a not written and oral agreement on the side. Totally not legal and totally in violation of securities laws. So NCLH is trying to get this booted, saying it's not, there's no evidence backing this up. And even if there was, it would not be a legally binding agreement by any situation. So long story short, mo money, mo problems.
Yeah, apparently. All right. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, bud.
Glad to be here.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com. Earlier this year, Stephen took a 16-night Trans-Pacific and Fiji cruise on the Celebrity Solstice out of Sydney, Australia, and it ended in Honolulu. He joins us on the line to talk all about this bucket list cruise. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Doug. It's great to be with you.
Likewise. I say bucket list cruise because it's a bucket list cruise of mine. I don't know if it was for you or not, but well, I guess we'll find out. We're going to take a step back here before we get to Celebrity Solstice itself and get some pre-cruise thoughts from you. What made you want to hop on this 16-nighter?
Well, interesting how I got involved in this, Doug. A friend of mine had this booked as a solo journey and decided they didn't want to do solo anymore. And within my friend group, I'm the guy that's known as someone who will not say no to a cruise. So when he decided he wanted someone to go with, of course, I was on board right away.
You had to fly from the Detroit area to Sydney. So what kind of pre-cruise time did you do before your cruise?
Well, a lot of time in the air. We'll start there. But once getting to Sydney, I sort of set it up to have 3 nights prior in Sydney. I knew with the 16-night sailing as it was, I could afford about 3 additional nights. I've been to Hawaii before, so I put them all on the front end and spent that extra time in Sydney.
How jet lagged does one get flying from Detroit to Sydney?
Doug, this was my first time flying to Sydney, and I have to say I had a little bit of a rough time for about the first day and a half for sure. So I would advise anyone flying that long to definitely have some time pre-cruise so that you're not angry or short fuse or anything like that on board the ship. Luckily, I got that all out of the way prior and had that time to adjust.
How was the embarkation process? Like, how long did it take you to get from the curb to the ship?
From the curb to the ship was about 25 minutes. It was a pretty smooth embarkation. The port there in Sydney is a really great one. It's in an area called the Rocks, which is kind of an historic zone area. And it's one of those ports you can actually walk right to. So we were staying right in the central business district. We took a bus and literally walked to the port. And that's just such a freeing feeling versus what I'm used to sailing out of, like Florida, where,
Mhm.
I don't even think you could even walk to,
Right.
I don't think they'd allow you to walk to like Fort Lauderdale or Miami, but it made it nice because we were able to actually walk there early, go to a bar, wait until our time to embark, and then just freely walk up and board the ship.
And have you sailed on a Solstice class ship before?
I have. So I was really looking forward to this. I've sailed Silhouette, which is one of her newer sister ships, but that was a few years ago. And this ship has just been through a renewal. So I was really excited to get on board.
So what were your impressions walking aboard Celebrity Solstice this time around?
So coming on board this time, it really felt like a new ship. So you come in the area that is not quite the main atrium, but where the Boulevard Bar is, which is a new space, Boulevard Lounge and Parlor. So that was kind of the first thing that I saw were three brand new venues, and they are just absolutely stunning. I've never sailed the Edge class, but from what I understand with this renewal, they really tried to take some of that design element and some of that feel and look and feel and implement those in these new venues. And it really felt very classy, very upscale, very modern, but also warm and welcoming too. So it didn't feel, nothing felt out of place, but I'll say that my first impressions of the ship were familiar, but very much impressed. Like I was walking onto something that had been upgraded.
Did the Boulevard Bar replace the ice bar or the martini bar in the atrium?
No, so that was the martini bar,
Okay.
and they still have a martini bar on a different level, but I'm not actually sure what the Boulevard Bar replaced. In talking with some crew, they said that it was just that whole space was kind of underutilized before. And it was so unrecognizable, Doug, that I couldn't even tell you what was there on Silhouette.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, let's go to your stateroom here. Yeah, you were on for 16 nights. So what kind of stateroom did you book, and what did you think of it?
So we had a veranda, which is what Celebrity calls their balcony cabins, and we were starboard side, a little bit forward of the forward elevators. Nice cabin. That class of ship really has spacious cabins, really good storage. They did some renewal of, I'd say, like the soft surfaces. So all the carpeting was new and furniture and things like that. They didn't renew everything in the cabin, but I'd say those cabins were really good to begin with. I remember from Silhouette, and they were refreshed along with the renovation of the ship.
You mentioned that it was refreshed. When the ship being almost 20 years old, did it feel dated at all with, I don't know, any kind of like technology or anything might be missing?
It did in a few spots, Doug. It had, I'm sure you're familiar with the temperature controls where it has like the blue and the red versus digital.
Right.
And it's kind of like on the older ships, some of that white plastic gets a little yellowed over time. And so we kind of laughed at that a little bit. There were a couple of things where they did feel a little bit dated, although they did refresh, I'd say, the soft surfaces. One other thing that was a little bit odd for us on this sailing, I heard they were working on this, but the nightstand lights, which are mounted on the walls, had these little plastic, they were like stainless steel, but on the bottom there was like a plastic line type of thing. Well, if you pulled that plastic off, there were actually USB-C ports on there, but they didn't work yet. So they put these bars of plastic over so that you wouldn't obviously call complaining about a non-working USB-C. So I heard from some crew that I think that was something they didn't get quite operational when it was when she was in dry dock. So that was something that was a little out of date too, because we didn't have a modern like plug package like you would expect. Besides that, I think everything felt pretty normal from what I would expect for the cabin.
Well, let's talk about the dining on board Celebrity Solstice, and we'll go to the buffet area. The Ocean View Cafe is what Celebrity calls it. How did it hold up on a long transpacific cruise? How was the food, and did it ever feel too crowded?
Doug, it held up really well. The food quality was really, really good. They did a nice job of having a lot of variety through that. For such a long sailing like that, it is easy to see a lot of the same things again and again. One of the things that really stood out was on our last sea day, they did kind of a seafood feast with lobster and shrimp on the buffet for lunch, something you don't always see. And that was, a fantastic treat. That day, we'll probably get into later, we had a lot of interesting things happen that day, which made it very memorable. But the food overall, the quality was excellent. I think the variety was really good, and it never felt crowded. One of the things about a about a trans-Pacific sailing is that everything's a little more relaxed. It's spread out over a longer period of time. There are typically fewer people on the ship too, because they don't typically sell out on those repositioning sailings. It never felt crowded because everyone, I think, just sort of took their time a little bit more, and people were exploring more, like specialty restaurants and things like that. And the size that they have dedicated on the ship for the Ocean View Cafe is plenty large for the number of passengers for that ship, even if it were sailing full.
A fairly new venue, I believe, is the Sunset Cafe or Sunset Park Cafe. Did you dine there?
Yes. So Sunset Park took the place of the Lawn Club. And there was a grill there before, and they had a glass blowing studio. So the glass blowing studio and the grill went away, and they replaced it with Sunset Park and Sunset Cafe. Really good quality food. They had it was more like bites, I would say, kind of grab and go. They had like sandwiches and salads and things like that. Everything that I had there was really, really good. Particularly, there was a turkey club wrap that was just unbelievable. And one of the things that I love, Doug, is every day from, I think it was 4 to 5 p.m., they have a warm cookie hour at Sunset Cafe. So, they have their huge selection of cookies, and just go up and get warm cookies and enjoy in that beautiful venue that they've created there at Sunset Park.
As far as the main dining room, what time dining did you have, and how was the dining in there throughout the 16 nights?
So we had the early dining. The dining was really good. The service was fantastic. Food quality was really, really good. Nothing but great experiences for main dining. We met a lot of people along the way, so we would. I feel a little bad for our servers, who were absolutely fantastic, because they never knew how many people we would show up with. But it was that type of sailing where you could do that because it wasn't completely full. In fact, I think it was night 3, we ran into one of our main servers. She was at Ocean View, and she said, "Where were you last night? We missed you. Come bring more people." So we had a really good rapport with the crew, and the quality was excellent as well.
A new install was the Fine Cut Steakhouse, which originally came from the Edge class ships. Did you do any specialty dining on this 16-night cruise?
Doug, we didn't do any specialty dining at all, actually. So, but yes, I know they did do something with the steakhouse, and they also added a new Italian-themed specialty dining restaurant that we did not go to, but we did meet some people who went to it, and they said it was absolutely excellent.
Fair enough. Let's go to the entertainment then. What did you think throughout the 16 nights?
Really enjoyed the entertainment, Doug. It's interesting because on a sailing of this length, they have to spread out the entertainment a little bit more, right? Because they have enough of their feature shows for usually 4 nights or something like that. They're generally running like a 7-night schedule. So on a 16 night, you just have to know going in that you're going to get a lot more of like guest entertainers kind of as part of it. It was definitely more of an Australian bent to it. Almost all of the guest entertainers that would be at the main showtimes were Australian. And actually, that was the biggest group of folks on this cruise as well. Really talented. One of the things I appreciated, even with the guest entertainers, is that oftentimes they were coordinated with the onboard orchestra as well. And one of the things that I really like about Celebrity on all the sailings I've been on with them is that they still have a full live orchestra for their production shows. And it was nice to see that orchestra used for the guest entertainers as well. They had 2 shows that really stood out. Broken Strings, which I've actually seen before. I believe it was on Silhouette. Loved that show. And they had a new show for this ship called Smoke and Ivories that was just absolutely stunning, absolutely fantastic. Our sailing was actually the first sailing that this cast or anyone had performed that show on Celebrity Solstice, and they just did an incredible job. I mean, between the acrobatics, the singing, the dancing, the sets. I mean, it was just a really, really incredible show. One of the best shows I've seen at sea.
Outside of the theater and the guest entertainers, any like music venues, piano bars, or anything around the ship that may have caught your ear?
Yeah, plenty. Dueling pianos. They had a really, really good crew doing dueling pianos. Two ladies from, I believe they were from Kentucky. And they were just the real deal. They were fantastic. Worked with the audience a lot. The kind of people, they've kind of seen it all. They've done it all, and they were just really, really good. Knew every song, took requests. They did a really nice job too of taking the members from the orchestra and using them around the ship at other different events as well. So, like the violinist performed several times in Sunset Park and doing like solo violin. She was just absolutely talented and did like modern music on like an electric violin. It was really cool. They did a candlelight concert in the Sky Lounge one night where they had a smaller cohort of the orchestra doing all types of music under candlelight. They must have like 250 candles in there. It was really cool. Obviously not real candles, Doug. We're talking about a ship, but the fake LED ones, they were convincing looking though. So yeah, and then they anytime you're walking around the parlor bar, or I'm sorry, not the parlor bar, but the boulevard bar, different places, just there was always seemingly something going on day and night around the ship in terms of live entertainment and live music.
Yeah, there's got to be such a fine balance and I guess kind of an art to make sure that you can keep the guests entertained for, a little over 2 weeks, because you got to make sure that they're not getting, oh, great, another one of these,
It really is. And I think they had a home run with it. They also had enrichment programs too. And I didn't partake in a lot of them, but we saw some of the things going on. So because we were going through like French Polynesia, they had hula dancing lessons. They had a ukulele. They did it, I think 2 or 3 times. They had a ukulele playing class. Doug, I'm not kidding you. They had like 100 little ukuleles, and you'd go to the Boulevard Lounge. They pass out. I don't know where they store all this stuff. They pass out all these ukuleles, and you learn to play the ukulele. And so they did it, and they had enrichment talks as well. So I think that really helps. A lot of the things I'm describing now were like sort of daytime activities because we had a lot of sea days. So that kind of helped to just have other types of things to learn about and kind of get a little more immersed in the culture. And that I didn't expect to see, but I really appreciated that they had.
Yeah, no, certainly. So let's talk about the sea days as far as crowds and congestion. You mentioned that you didn't think the ship was at capacity. So how were the sea days?
Sea days were lovely. Absolutely lovely. From what I heard, I think we were about 80% capacity. And so never any crowds for anything. This was a warm sailing because we were in April and, we're passing the equator and we're the hottest part of the world. So you would think that like the pool would be packed, but it really was. I think when they made the change by adding the Sunset Park, Doug, that created a lot of nice outside space that wasn't utilized on the ship before when it was a lawn club. That sort of spread people out from feeling like you had to be around the pool if you wanted to be outside. And the Sunset Park provided really comfortable furniture. It provided a lot of shade. They had these like sail types of structures. So you had good shade or sun. You kind of had your options. And then you had the new Sunset Bar on the back that had really comfortable seating as well. So I think the ship with this renewal did a really nice job design-wise, of allowing people to really spread out over all the outside areas and still feel like you're in a premium space without feeling like you have to be around the pool. So as a result, crowds and congestion were really not an issue, even on the hottest typical pool days.
Yeah, and that sunset bar area back there is just amazing.
Oh, overlooking the wake, and they really did a nice job with the refit. Just nice premium materials, the furniture. Like, you can tell they really had a design eye, and they spent the money, you know, on the materials to make it just feel great. And one of my favorite spots on any celebrity ship I've been on is Sunset Bar, and this kind of takes it to the next level.
Certainly. Now, of course, Celebrity does not allow smoking in the casinos on board, but was there, 16 nights, was there much action in the casino?
Not for me. I'm not much of a gambler. My friend that I traveled with gambled a decent amount. And we met people who gambled and, you know, won and did well. But in passing through it at night, like late night, it had some energy to it. Probably not as much as you would experience on like a short sailing where everyone's trying to get it all in really quick. But it definitely didn't feel dead by any means.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about the ports of call on the 16-night cruise. So you leave Sydney. How many days at sea did you have until your first port, and what was that port?
So after Sydney, we had 2 full days at sea, and our first port was Lifu Island in New Caledonia. It was really neat. It was quaint. It's a very small island that cruise ships don't visit often. In fact, I heard that this was the first time that celebrities ever even been there. It is definitely beautiful from, crystal blue, clear waters. There's a nice beach right there at the port that you don't even have to take any transportation to. It was a tender port. It was actually our only tender port. So after tendering, we could just walk right to the beach. And then we walked up some bluffs and saw a cool cathedral and a church. And then there was a cave that you could, that's actually a natural spring that they used to actually get water from there. And now you can swim in it. And we went and hiked down to this really cool cave and swam. And it was just a really, really cool experience.
Is the water as blue as it looks in New Caledonia, or are people using some serious filters?
It really is. It is clear. It is blue. It is just unbelievable. Kind of takes your breath away.
Okay, so then you go to your next port of call. You probably had a sea day or two between that as well?
Yep, we had another sea day, actually 2 sea days, and then we were in our first stop of Fiji. Lakota is the name of the port that we were at. And there we did sort of a tour that we saw. We went to a botanical garden called the Garden of the Sleeping Giant. That was really cool. It kind of felt like walking through Jurassic Park. Really mountainous and lush and green, and they had this incredible collection of orchids and all kinds of cool vegetation. Then they're famous there for their hot springs and mud pools. And this is where you literally cover your body in mud and let it soak into your skin till it dries, and then rinse it off by swimming in hot springs. And then we went to a beach resort after that our driver took us to and had some beach time and a cool bar there. One of the things that was really interesting about Fiji is that the ocean water, Doug, is the warmest I've ever experienced. The ocean was 85 degrees, and I'm not kidding or exaggerating. It's literally 85 degrees. It feels like bath water. It's almost too warm, to tell you the truth. But I'd never experienced anything like that before in the ocean.
Now, you mentioned you did a double header in Fiji. So what was the second island or the second port? Second port
was Suva, and we were actually supposed to do a snorkeling trip there. And kind of funny, that morning we talked to this lady that we had met, and she was going to do a snorkeling trip through Celebrity. Now, we had one that we had booked privately. She happened to mention to us that her trip got canceled by Celebrity's provider because of a box jellyfish warning. And a box jellyfish can actually kill a human being. And so we called our supplier to see, if it was canceled. I said, "Oh no, it's still good. We're still on. We're still taking you out." I said, well, do you know about the box jellyfish warning? Oh, yeah, we know about that. It's safe. We're good. We take people to safe places. So needless to say, Doug, we went ahead and canceled. So we went. We weren't gonna. If Celebrity was gonna cancel, we figured it would be safe to do the same. So we wound up kind of last minute making that a city day and just kind of walked around and explored the town there, which was really quaint. It was really nice.
As we're making our way through these bucket list destinations, how are you researching these pre-cruise? Are you using the cruise line as your guide, or are you looking like an Viator and other shore excursion companies of the sort?
A little bit of both. I tend to start with like what the cruise line offers, and then I look at like private ones like Viator and others to get an idea of what's out there and what different options are available.
And jumping back to the ports of call, what was up next and what did you do?
It was Samoa, and then American Samoa was after that. Yeah, so we get to Samoa, gorgeous port. Oh my goodness, coming in there was just unbelievable. They had buses that took us into town because this was more of like a working port, kind of industrial. But it was nice that Celebrity had that already set up automatically to take us right into town. And we just made kind of a city day of that. And we just walked around and toured the town. There's a really cool cathedral there that we visited and toured just kind of on our own. And then walked around town until the point where I thought I was about to pass out, Doug, because it was so hot. That was the hottest day I've ever experienced, probably in my life. We're getting closer and closer to the equator at this point, and it was just it got to the point where it was unbearable. So we kind of cut that exploration a little bit short just to get back to the air conditioning of the Celebrity Solstice. I do recommend for anyone going to Samoa, stick to the beach if you're going, in probably any time, but in April, stick to water activities because it was just too hot to be walking around in the town.
Do you have to get visas going to New Caledonia or Fiji? I assume like American Samoa, you would be exempt.
We did not. The only place that we had to get a visa for was for Australia, our embarkation port, and then everything else was, if there was anything required, I'm assuming the cruise line took care of it, but there was nothing else that we needed to do for these other stops.
And then your second stop was American Samoa. How was that?
This, Doug, was the surprise port of the entire trip. American Samoa blew my mind in terms of natural beauty. And it all started from when we pulled up in the morning and opened the curtains and went out on the balcony as we're pulling into port, and you just see these towering green, lush mountains and little houses working their way up the mountains and beautiful deep blue, clear crystal waters. I mean, I just knew something special was going to happen that day. Even though we were coming from some really cool places, this was like a whole nother level of beauty. And we wound up meeting up with some other folks that we had met aboard, and we took a cab to a place called $2 Beach. This was the coolest beach, I think one of the coolest beaches I've ever been to. Just absolutely beautiful, stunning waters, beautiful sand, but very simple. This wasn't any kind of resort, Doug. This was just like some people set up a beach and they're grilling outside, and they don't have a bar, but they'll sell you a can of beer, or if you bring your own, they'll put it in a cooler for you and keep it cold, which is what we did. Just a laid back, really beautiful place. The pictures I have are absolutely stunning, but don't even really do it justice. I had no idea how beautiful American Samoa was. Very kind of mountainous, rocky, but also very green and lush. And you're just driving on these roads where the waves are crashing over these like volcanic rocks, but trees are growing. It was just amazing. One interesting thing, the $2 Beach has this, you walk out, there's the sand, there's the beautiful water. In the middle, there's like this other mountain. And at the top, there are bats that just like fly around during the day. They're literally bats on the beach, which I'd never seen before either. Just unworldly, everything that was going on there. And we just had an absolute blast. That's a place I would definitely go back. It's hard to get to, clearly, really in the middle of the ocean. But if you can ever get a chance to go there, it's absolutely stunning.
After Samoa there, you had a long stretch of sea days. What is it like? Another probably stupid question, but I've never done this itinerary before, so I'm just going to ask it anyway. What is it like crossing over the international date line? Are you skipping a day, or how does that work?
Okay, so the direction we were going, we actually regained a day. So we crossed on, I think it was like a Tuesday. So it's fascinating. So you go to bed Tuesday night, you wake up, and it's Tuesday morning again. So you literally repeat the same day over again. So you get like a bonus day out of it, which was really cool. So that was just a neat thing to do. And we also crossed the equator on this cruise too, which is always fun. I had heard of what that's like on a cruise ship, where they do the ceremony and everything. And we did all of that, where they brought out King Neptune and his royal court to wish us safe passage into the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, these are cruise director staff, kind of playing these people, but the captain got involved and introduced us into the Shellback Society. So if you have not crossed the equator by sea before, you're known as it's what's known as being a polywog. And then once you've crossed the equator, you're known as being a shellback. So we all became shellbacks. And as part of that, they literally brought out a fish, like from the kitchen, like a giant fish. And everyone had a chance to go up and kiss the fish. And that's literally part of the ceremony. And by the way, it is a real fish. It's not like they bring out some like plastic fish. Like it was a fish on ice. And everyone went up and kissed it, and we had the ceremony, and it was really fun. And the captain sounded the horn several times, for passing the equator, and it was just one of those cool maritime experiences that was neat to do.
I have to ask then, because at the top of the show you said that there's an interesting thing happened. Was that it?
Oh, we had a technical issue with our ship on our last full sea day, which was the same day as the lobster and everything in the buffet. In the morning, we fully lost power. And so we had a complete loss of power for a few minutes. And I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes. And then, some people were in elevators, and some, you're wherever you would be on the ship. And then they were able to restart it, and we got power back again for about 6 minutes. And then we lost power again for maybe another 5 or 6 minutes. And then they were able to get power restored, but we were only sailing on one propeller. So we were back at Sunset Cafe, and you could clearly see, we felt the speed drop. We were down to 11 knots, one propeller going. And that was during the time of lunch, when we're all dining on lobster, and wondering what's going on here. Of course, the captain was keeping us informed of, the best he could with that. Of course, they say there's nothing to worry about, which is always my cue to get curious about what's going on whenever I hear there's nothing to worry about on a ship. But in the end, they were able to restore power. Propulsion power fully, and everything seems like it's back to normal. And then about 2 hours later, the captain comes on and said that we have a medical emergency, and that we were going to be going full throttle as fast as we could to get as close to Hawaii, and then have a medevac helicopter bring the person off the ship. So we were doing the full 24 knots that ship could do. And then at about 12:30 that night, U.S. Coast Guard helicopter from Hawaii came to the bow, circled the ship several times, and came to the bow and rescued the medical emergency person off the ship. And so it was a lot of interesting things happened on that last day. But everyone was very professional, and we didn't know a lot of the details of what happened, but We were all wishing well for the person, but it was great to see that they were able to get the medevac for the person, and the fact that it happened on the last day when we were approaching Hawaii versus if it had happened 3 days earlier, when we were in the middle of an 8-night at sea experience, it could have been a whole nother story. So just goes to show these crossings are, they're serious maritime activities and there are risks. And, just like the sailors of the past, granted, we're doing it in comfort and luxury now, but it doesn't make the risks, any less. And I appreciate that about the sea and about, everything that goes on behind the scenes, when we're on these sailings and crossings.
Lucky that happened when it did and not a couple of hours earlier when the ship was only going 11 knots.
Yeah, they did a great job of keeping us informed, and they're pros at this. And interestingly, I saw on our Facebook page afterwards, there was someone else who was on board who had actually been medevaced off another ship that this same captain from Celebrity was captaining a few years ago. And he actually posted his photo of like, here's me, on the ship before, and, just how great, he thought the medical team was and everything. So that was a really unique experience, but they deal with these things actually more often than we would think.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. So after that stretch of sea days, you terminated the cruise in Honolulu?
We did. And actually it was interesting because that was our last port of call, but we actually had a full day and a night before we were required to disembark. So we actually had the full day in Honolulu, could come back on the ship, have dinner, do everything. And then our actual embarkation was the following morning. So it was kind of nice to have that full day. And we went to Waikiki Beach and just had a great time there. And then slowly kind of worked our mindset into the sailing ending, which is not an easy thing to do after that long of a sailing. I always hate the last night of any cruise, but particularly one that's 16 nights.
Yeah, half a month there. So are there any nonstop flights from Honolulu to Detroit?
Yeah. Luckily, we had a nonstop flight, direct flight right to Detroit. So that made the trip back a lot easier.
Yeah, certainly. Well, wow, we unpacked a lot here for this 16-night sailing. Do you have any first-time tips to offer anyone doing a Trans-Pacific?
Yeah, I would say just be ready to have a nice, slow, relaxed pace. It doesn't mean you're going to be bored. It doesn't mean that there's going to be nothing to do, because you definitely will have plenty to do and you'll have a great time. But just know that everything just happens a little bit slower and is a little bit calmer. So for people who are looking for like a true vacation where, not the type of cruise where you come back and you need a vacation from your vacation, but like a true relaxing reset experience, a transoceanic is definitely something you should consider. What
was the biggest highlight of this cruise for you?
Definitely Pago Pago, American Samoa. Absolutely the highlight. A huge surprise for me. I to be honest, I didn't do a ton of research on it before, so I didn't know what to expect. And it was just absolutely stunning. Another highlight, Doug, would just be being one of the first to experience a ship just out of renewal for Celebrity. And if you remember from our last call, I'm a bit of a ship nerd. So I kind of geek out on how they plan and what they do and why they make the decisions that they do. What they did with these venues was just, I think they just hit the ball out of the park with it. Particularly, we didn't talk about it, but particularly the Parlor. That is a venue that is it's kind of like I would describe it as like an adult arcade. They sort of took the social club experience that you have on Virgin Voyages, but I think they really took it up several notches with over 400 board games. They have arcade games that you can play for free. They have skee ball that's free. They had these really cool dart boards that were electronically scored, get a cork and real metal dart, but you could play because it was all electronic. You could play all these other cool games with it. They had shuffleboard and just the look, the feel, the polish of the place just felt really, really great. So that was my favorite venue on the ship. Of course, Pago Pago was my favorite place off the ship.
Looking at the updated deck plans here, so I didn't realize they took out that nightclub Quasar, and that's where they put in the parlor.
Yeah. So it's sort of two sides of it. So on one side, you have the Boulevard Lounge, and that's where you have like the game shows and dueling pianos at night and stuff like that. And then the parlor, which we were just talking about, is that other space that nobody really used as Quasar. And now it's just like just a really fun place to grab a pint and play games. We played Battleship. I haven't played Battleship in like 20 years. They've got the old games, they've got the new games. We were playing skee ball. It was just a really fun experience, and everything's free. They're not charging for any of that stuff. So it just has a nice, relaxed vibe to it for sure. They did a great job, Doug. With the areas that they touched, I think they really optimized it. So Solstice is the first of the Solstice class ships that's going to get this renewal. So I think they said they're spending $250 million between all the 4 ships doing this. So it'll go to Equinox and Silhouette and Reflection as well eventually. Nightlife, it's very active. It's got a lot of good energy around the shows because you already have all that traffic kind of coming through there. Another one we didn't discuss is World Class Bar. Mm-hmm. That's up a deck and a little bit aft. And that's a nice new craft cocktail bar that they created. I don't remember what was there before, but nice and quiet, nice and has a nice high-end feel to it. Really good old fashions. Actually had an old fashioned menu where you could get 4 or 5 different takes on an old fashioned, including like fig and some different things. So what you would kind of picture a small, intimate craft cocktail bar to be. And that I think fits right at home in the Celebrity portfolio as well. So I think that was a really good ad.
You mentioned this was a last minute addition for you. So with that being said, was the value there for the price you paid?
I think absolutely the value was there. And I'd recommend to anyone considering transoceanic that you're typically going to have great values for those because, they're repositioning the ship anyway to its new deployment and they don't typically sell out. And if you're looking at a great price per night experience, transoceanics are almost always going to be, I think, your best bet.
Well, in closing here, your final thoughts of Celebrity Solstice.
A beautiful ship. She's aged very well. They've maintained her amazingly over the years, and the renewal, I think, just makes her even better. If anyone's looking for a kind of that mid-size ship with a premium feel, go for it. Don't hesitate. Don't feel like you need to do the newest ship in the fleet because I think you're going to get that premium new feel with this renewed Celebrity Solstice.
We've been talking with Stephen about his 16-night Fiji and transpacific cruise from Sydney to Honolulu. Stephen, always good talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing this review with us.
Thanks, Doug. Until the next cruise.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,